Hi, I'm Loula Yorke. We're here at Asylum Studios, where Treen HQ, which is where I got my studio, is. There's lots of visual artists here and another musician. So yeah, it's a multi-purpose space. We've got a gallery, got an exhibition on at the moment. Yeah, so it's pretty like vibey. I'm a live artist, I'm a modular synthesist, I'm a sound artist. I work with participation, so making work with groups of people, sort of community work. And I also make videos and films and yeah, kind of multimedia, I would say. A multimedia composer, maybe. In terms of electronic music, my formative years were spent running raves in North London. So I was part of a sound system called Headfuck, and we put on squat raves every weekend. So yeah, that was pretty influential. Yeah, like breaking into buildings, putting a massive sound system in there every weekend. Yeah. The collective was like 100% focused on arts and music, so there's loads of like awesome electronic musicians that have come out of that sound system. And yeah, and visual artists too. So we used to run a thing called temporary autonomous art, where we would like take the concept of like breaking into a building and make it into your own. And instead of like doing a rave, which is obviously, you know, at a certain time of day, can be quite disruptive, we'd put on art exhibitions. So actually fill a building with art, and loads of people would kind of, yeah, contribute their stuff and come along. And it was just like a really nice extension of the rave. So it wasn't always just kind of for the same audience and like serving the same people. My journey so far is kind of interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot, as I've been asked about it a lot. And I used to really struggle to kind of pinpoint a time where music suddenly became important. And I've been doing a bit of research into like the musicality of children and how music, you know, what role music plays in our lives. And basically when you learn to speak and when you learn to like communicate in any way, not even just speaking, it's basically you're improvising with your mum. So like you're looking at each other's faces and you're looking at each other's like, and you're listening to each other's sounds and you're mimicking. So basically like music is part of our, like as humans, is like a massive part of our kind of development, like neurodevelopment when you're an infant. So yeah, like when have I not been into music? Same with everybody else. So like I think everyone's a musician, and I think I'm a musician because I decided to be. I didn't like train at a conservatoire. I didn't like take loads of piano lessons when I was a kid and get really good at it. I kind of decided as an adult, like I made a decision to like be a musician, and I think anyone can do that. And I'm like really keen to kind of enable other people to make that leap and to yeah, not be frightened off by music and not be frightened off by technology or like all of the kind of classical stuff that goes with it and all of that. So yeah, when have we all not been into music? I started buying instruments and getting into hardware about 10 years ago. I've got a band with my other half, Dave Stitch, and we, yeah, our whole studio basically came out with us to every gig. Modular's quite a nice kind of transition away from that because it's much smaller. So all the hardware synths we had before, like kind of big key synths and rack synths and stuff. But yeah, about 10 years ago. And about 1 year ago in this space. So taking it out of the home situation and actually like making a dedicated space away from home has been like really good leap. I made the transition into modular about 4 or 5 years ago off the back of a really talented artist called Black Mass Plastics, who, if you don't know his work, you should check it out. He made me and Dave a modular drum machine. So it had like a Barton Musical Instruments kick and like a Polyvox filter and something that made a snare that was just like a bit of white noise. And it was super, super basic, but it had lots of modulation possibilities with CV. And that's the first time I'd come across CV, and it's the first time I'd sort of really thought about altering my sound live in that way. And obviously once you've kind of clicked with that, it's quite hard to get away from it because it's just like so addictive, but also sounds so good. So yeah, so then I kind of moved away from hardware synths that are kind of fixed, you know, in their capabilities, I guess. And I'm now completely pretty much modular. Like we have a lot of like old kind of legacy hardware, just because it's fun to have and obviously sounds really good. And Dave uses it in his rig, but in terms of my rig, I don't use any of it anymore. I'm 100% modular at the moment. Yeah, the DIY thing is super important. It's fun. It's kind of a way to get cheaper modules, obviously. It kind of means you can customize your stuff a lot more. So you probably noticed I've got some interesting looking cases that are made out of bits of wood. And that's obviously not something you're going to be able to buy in a shop. So yeah, just kind of knowing your way around what aesthetic you want to get, and then working with that is cool. And DIY is obviously awesome for that. The cases are all because it's like a weird thing what we grew into our name. So we started a band called Treen, and Treen is functional objects made of wood. So it's like this weird sort of collectible antique. And we were like, oh, haha, that's quite funny, isn't it? Totally didn't think about it. Then we were getting into modular and couldn't afford actually to buy the cases. So Dave was like, oh, it's fine. I'll just knock us up something and stick in a power supply. Oh, what am I going to use as the wood? Ah, look, here are some logs, because we live in the country and we burn logs. So it was literally like this kind of weird thing where we realised that would be Treen. So we sort of came at it like backwards. It was quite cool. And then after he made me my inner log, he's made a few other cases for things you might see in the studio. There's a thongolin, which is a benjolin. There's the tree, which is a stepper acid, and a Zox heart. And I'm trying to think what else there is. And then there's the new Treen drum machine, which hopefully you've got a bit of footage of me playing. So that's sort of like this weird wood aesthetic. And he was like, well, no one would take these out. These are ridiculous. They're heavy. You can't transport them. They're constantly breaking. And I was like, I'll do it. So it's sort of that's how I came to have those instruments. And now I love them, and I love the fact they're really different, and I love the aesthetic of them. I think they're brilliant, even though they are totally impractical and yeah. My recording process is that I always treat it like a live set, and I play it all in live. I've just got a new desk where I can actually separate the different instruments into different channels, which is completely brilliant. So early recordings of mine, it was all kind of mashed into one thing. And I love that. I love the fact that you're kind of playing a tune from start to finish, and there will be bits that will be wrong, wrong. And I like that about it. I like that feeling of kind of slight risk. My favourite ALM module, well, the ones I've had the longest is the Pam's new workout. And that is the clock, and it also provides some LFOs, and it clocks everything else. And then recently I got a squid sample, which is now running all of my drums. So I've got the Treen, which is that outboard drum machine that we looked at. But in terms of in my modular case, the squid is now being the drums. So apart from a BIA, which is like an extra bit. So it's been incredibly helpful. Because for ages I was using a TR-09, which is obviously a program, sequencer drum machine. And that was being the clock. And it was when I got the Pams that it was like, hang on a second, this isn't going to work together anymore. I need to kind of integrate those drums into my system somehow. So yeah, kind of sacked off the TR-09, and luckily the squid has kind of come in and it has a 909 in it. So hey, that worked.